Welcome back to Animal Appreciation. This week we're talking about crocodilians. So, crocodilians are kind of just this larger grouping that encompasses like crocodiles, alligators, and all of those other fun guys in there. Starting off, we have the largest of the crocodilians, the saltwater crocodile. And these guys are commonly thought of being Australian. Australia is very well known for their saltwater crocodile population, but they live in so many other places. They live in a ton of areas around like Asia and Oceania, so it does live in Australia. They are there, but they also live in places like India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, all around there. They're like very, very widespread, so they're not just in Australia. This is the gharial, a kind of odd-looking one. They definitely look interesting. Now, these guys are very rare. They're considered to be critically endangered. They used to live throughout a ton of areas in Asia and, like, around there. Now they're mainly only found in a few select areas of India, Nepal, and I think some in Bangladesh, but their population has decreased very dramatically, unfortunately. As for gators, there's only actually two species of alligator. This is one of them, the American alligator. The American alligator is the larger of the two species. The other one we will talk about later in the video, but they can also be differentiated from crocodiles by the shape of their snout. The alligator snout is generally a lot more curved, where the crocodile tends to be a lot pointier. You can also tell by their teeth, but if you're close enough to be able to see their teeth, I don't think identifying which one it is too much of your problem here. The American alligator lives in a bunch of areas in the United States, largely Florida and Louisiana, as well as some areas in Texas and various other places. In addition to being found in the United States, they can also be found in some areas of the Caribbean, but not nearly as common as far as I'm aware. Now, while the most well-known crocodilian species in North America tends to be the American alligator, we also have American crocodiles here in North America. Now, within the states, the American crocodiles do tend to have a similar range as the American alligators, largely in like Florida, Texas, some areas of California, but they also extend to other areas. These guys can commonly be found in areas of South and Central America, such as Mexico, down all the way through to around Peru, as well as some other miscellaneous areas and islands like Cuba, Jamaica, all that. So there's a pretty wide range and decently common for how many people don't know about them being there. Everyone always thinks America alligators, Australia crocodiles, but they're in other places too. This is the false gharial. So much like the true gharial, this guy is endangered. It's less threatened than the regular gharial, but the false gharial still is considered to be endangered, unfortunately. But there are more of these guys than there are of the regular true gharials, and they have a slightly different range than true gharials. They tend to live around Indonesia and Malaysia and a couple other areas as well. This is the Cuban crocodile. Again, it is one of the rarest types of crocodiles, or crocodilians. It is considered to be critically endangered, unfortunately, and this is due to the fact that it is endemic to Cuba, the just one singular island, and it can only currently be found in like 2 places in the entirety of Cuba, so it is very rare and very endangered as well. This is a personal favorite of mine, the spectacled caiman. I don't know why I like them so much, I just really like caimans in general. The spectacled caiman specifically lives in a bunch of areas of South and Central America and Mexico, so its range tends to extend all the way from Mexico down through a bunch of areas in South and Central America and all the way down to Argentina. Caimans also tend to be on the smaller side of crocodilians, so compared to crocodiles and alligators, they are quite a bit smaller. This doesn't mean that they're less dangerous. You still don't want to mess with a caiman, but they are still quite a bit smaller than other crocodilian species. And now we have our second representative of the alligator species, the only other alligator other than the American one, the Chinese alligator. And you may have guessed from the name, it lives only in China. Now, again, unfortunately, this species is considered to be endangered, so there's not a ton of them left anymore. Unfortunately, the American alligator is quite a bit more common than the Chinese alligator, and the Chinese alligator is also quite a bit smaller than the American one. This is the black caiman, another type of caiman species. This one lives in more the Amazon area, specifically in the Amazon River Basin, so throughout Brazil, Colombia, Bolivia, a bunch of areas around there. It really likes the Amazon River and all the areas around that. This is the Nile crocodile, another favorite of mine. As you can guess by the name, it lives largely in the Nile River in Africa, but not exclusively in the Nile River. It can be found in a bunch of areas of sub-Saharan Africa, so below the Sahara Desert, and also in a couple areas in Madagascar. Next, we have a little guy. This is the dwarf crocodile, and they're little. They live in a bunch of areas of West Africa. There's populations across multiple countries, including Ghana, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, all that. So this is the smallest crocodile species in the world, growing up to about 5 feet, like around that, which seems pretty big for a reptile, but when you compare that to like a saltwater crocodile that can get over 17 feet, yeah, it's a little guy. And finally, we have overall the smallest crocodilian in the world, the dwarf caiman. So they tend to be around the same size as the dwarf crocodiles. However, on average, the caimans, I'm pretty sure, tend to be a bit smaller than the crocodiles, even though their max length is somewhat similar. But these guys, again, live in a bunch of areas in South and Central America, including countries like Colombia, Peru, all around there. So I very much think that crocodilians, like all of them, are very cool, and they might not be the most interesting to look at after a while. They all tend to look kind of the same, but they deserve appreciation nonetheless.